Wow, I could not believe it when I realised that saying was wrong. Yes, you heard me correct. The saying that the only constant is change is wrong. Not fit for purpose anymore. But why is it wrong? It's wrong because in the 21st century, what's more true is the only constant is the acceleration of change. Yes, one word different, but it's a game changer. What's important to recognise today is not that things change. What's important to recognise today is that things are changing faster and faster and faster. The acceleration of change. So how can an enterprise today possibly keep up with this constant, relentless, never-ending acceleration of change? What I've discovered could change your company forever. The answer is the transformation of transformation. Most enterprises will not be able to cope, but we will explain how Pragmatic can help your enterprise to not only cope, but to thrive, to grow, to prosper, and to beat the competition. We will show you how to use the Enterprise Transformation Maturity Canvas, or ETMC for short, to begin your journey of the transformation of transformation. My name is Kevin Lee Smith, the founder of Pragmatic, and I have spent over 35 years of my life maturing the transformation capabilities of companies all over the world. So let me take you on a journey of the transformation of transformation.
We all spend time looking forward, wanting new things. We think that the solutions to all problems come from thinking of them. But sometimes it's a good idea to look to the past to see what we can learn. Sometimes we can learn more about our problems, sometimes we can learn more about our solutions. These words are very old, but perfectly embody both the problem and the solution with respect to the transformation domain of many enterprises. Sage words indeed. Sage words that are largely being ignored. Do you think that the rate of change on the outside of your enterprise exceeds the rate of change of your enterprise today, next year, in 5 years' time? Do you think your enterprise is more or less adaptable than your competitors, today, next year, in 5 years' time? What new thinking is your enterprise employing today, next year, in 5 years' time? If you ignore these sage words, what do you think your enterprise will look like in 5 years? If you ignore these sage words, do you think your enterprise will still exist in 5 years? In today's world, your transformation capability is strategically important and will either provide massive business advantage if done well, or create massive business problems if done badly. Your transformation capability has probably grown organically over time, and while it was mature enough to bring the enterprise to where it is now, it may not be mature enough to take it where it needs to go in the future. The Enterprise Transformation Maturity Canvas is a good way to begin to understand if your transformation capability has an appropriate level of maturity. Here we show the overall process. It can be stopped at any time. Do a little work, review the output, decide whether to continue. It starts with an initial free one-day workshop with representatives from various areas of transformation where we can assess at a high level your level of maturity. The more people involved, the better the maturity assessment will be. But we suggest representatives from strategy formulation, portfolio planning, PMO, business analysis, project management, change management, architects, developers and deployers. Within a week, we then create a free report that stakeholders can use to decide if there is any need to move on to dig a little deeper. If there is, the next step is to engage with more representatives from all areas of transformation to form a more comprehensive evaluation. Again, a report is created that stakeholders can use to determine what changes could be made to their transformation capability and the benefits that would be accrued, and to decide to move on or not. If a decision to move on is made, the next step is to create an action plan and estimates to physically design the changes identified. If the action plan is accepted, the work is then done to physically design the changes to the affected areas in conjunction with the leaders of those areas, and then to roll those changes out into live operation. Here we see all the phases and levels of the transformation domain. Ellipses relate to the phases of transformation where actual work is done. Rectangles relate to the levels of transformation which exist between each phase, where information created by one phase flows into the next. The phases, ellipses, are where methods are executed in the context of culture, i.e. the people and the values and their ethics, etc. The levels, rectangles, is where artifacts exist which are created and managed by the environment, namely the tools used to create and manage them. Governance is performed by each phase on the phase below, and lobbying is performed by each phase to the phase above. The black line between road mapping and initiating shows the delineation between executing projects, everything below the line that we call enterprise engineering, and everything that has to happen before we start executing projects, everything above the line. That is the domain of enterprise architecture. The Enterprise Transformation Maturity Canvas will use these phases and levels, first to ask people what phases they work in, and then secondly to volunteer their views on what is good and bad in each phase and level in their enterprise, and any suggestions for improvement. This is the Enterprise Transformation Maturity Canvas, ETMC. The canvas lays out the phases of work and levels of information being produced as work progresses from strategy formulation through to the deployment of change, illustrated by the numbers. The workshop begins with a 1-hour introduction to the ETMC and the terms it uses, explaining them and making sure everyone is on the same page. The rest of the time is spent facilitating a workshop, working with people to extract and categorize the most important information and to place that information in the relevant places on the ETMC. At the end of the workshop, there is a wash-up session, and over the following days, a free report will be generated, providing all the information collected, plus key findings and key recommendations. The ETMC consists of boxes with ellipses at the top, phases, and boxes with rectangles at the top, levels. Each contain information to guide people using the ETMC. The phases are used to consider what is being done, methods, and the people and the culture that is being used to do those things, culture, essentially verbs. The levels are used to consider what is being used or produced by those methods, artifacts, and the tools that are being used, environment, essentially nouns. A level to the right of a phase are the things that are produced as output. A level to the left of a phase are things that are being consumed as input, not shown in this example. Here we're just looking at the road mapping phase, and to the right the artifacts it produces. The grey text on each box is used as guidance and to jog people's thinking when considering each phase or level. For the phases, road mapping in this example, people are encouraged to think in terms of two key areas. The methods, people and culture that will consume and create transformational information, such as project planning, project management, change management, and requirements management. Secondly, the methods, people and culture that consume and create structural information, such as configuration management, analysis and design, implementation, testing and deployment. In addition, people are encouraged to think in terms of methods that could apply to both transformational information and structural information, such as lobbying and governance, decision-making, modeling and discovery. For levels, conceptual in this example, people are encouraged to think in terms of two key areas. Firstly, the artifacts and tools used that produce transformational information, such as motivation, actions, guidance, metrics and assessment. And secondly, the artifacts and tools used that produce structural information, such as methods, artifacts, culture and environment of the domain that is of interest. Here we show a sanitized real-world example of some assessments made. The yellow boxes that are placed on the diagram are to illustrate where people work. The red post-it notes which are placed on the diagram are indicating problems or things that are not being done well. Green boxes, not shown on this diagram, are areas where people think work is being done well, and orange boxes are suggestions for improvement. As illustrated here, the workshop can be done face-to-face with post-it notes, remotely using a cloud-based application, or a combination of the two. We find that initially a face-to-face workshop is much more advantageous, as it spawns a lot of debate that would be difficult or impossible if it were conducted remotely. As time goes on, the information can be easily transferred into the tool for analysis and discussion. Finally, a quick note about Pragmatic EC and Pragmatic EA. Pragmatic EA is a research company developing best practice relating to how enterprises plan, manage and execute change, for example POET and PF. The best practice that we develop contributes to the existing best practice such as Prince2, MSP, TOGAF, etc. Pragmatic EC is a consulting company which uses any appropriate best practice, whether developed by Pragmatic EA or not, to help enterprises mature any part of their transformation capability. Thank you for watching this presentation. If you have any questions or wish to book a free on-site maturity assessment, please go to pragmaticea.com/booktelecon, where you can choose a date and time that is convenient for you.